Good evening and welcome to the February 13th Board of Selectmen meeting. I ask you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We will start our meeting with the reading of the agenda. We will first go over our minutes of an informal meeting on January 23rd. Then we'll go over our minutes of a regular meeting on January 30th. We'll then move on to community relations announcements and open forums. We have 4 items under appointments and resignations. Number 1 is a public safety building committee appointment. Number 2 is an appointment for the local inspector. Number 3 is an appointment for the assistant treasurer. And number 4 is a resignation and appointment for the insurance advisory committee. We have 1 scheduled appointment tonight as a 6:45 appointment with Fire Chief Knopf about staffing. Under new business, we have 5 items. Number 1 is a special election request from DCRSD. Number 2 is a Mass State Lottery Commission update. Number 3 is an all boards / departments / commissions / committees meeting. Number 4 is a site plan application for 0 Brookfield Road. And number 5 is a building department permit fee evaluations. Under old business, we have 2 items. Number 1 is email outage notification to selectmen. And number 2 is a water betterment reimbursement for interest charges. We'll then move on to committee reports and Board of Selectmen policy reviews. Then to other business that was unknown at the time of posting, of which we have a site plan review for 4 Sturbridge Road. Our next meeting will be February 27th. With that, what are the board's wishes for January 23rd meeting minutes?
Through the chair.
Mr. McGrath.
I make a motion that we approve the January 23rd meeting minutes as written.
Thank you.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Chair votes aye, motion passes. What are the board's wishes with our January 30th meeting minutes?
Through the chair.
Mr. McGrath.
I make a motion that we approve the January 30th meeting minutes as written.
Second.
Thank you. Motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions?
Me.
Yeah. Chair votes aye. Motion passes with 4 ayes and 1 abstention. Thank you. We will now move on to community relations announcements and open forums. Announcement from the CERT program, a CERT training at Tri-Epic will be hosting CERT training for any resident of Charlton, Dudley, Oxford, Southbridge, Sturbridge, and Webster who would like to help their community. This training is free. Classes will be held at the Charlton Senior Center on Wednesday evenings from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. for approximately 12 weeks beginning February 28th. The deadline to apply is February 14th. Please visit townofcharlton.net for more information. As someone who went through this program, I highly recommend it. It's a great way to get involved in the community and learn a lot of good survival tools. From the Office of the Town Clerk. The following are open for elected officials for the May 6th town election. Papers will be available in the Town Clerk's office starting on Monday, February 12th. Additional information can be found on the Town Clerk's webpage at townofcharlton.net or by calling the office at 508-248-2249. And the positions up this year are 2 Board of Selectmen seats, 1 assessors, 1 Board of Health member, 1 Cemetery Commissioner, 2 Planning Board members, a Recreation Commissioner, 2 Library Trustees, a Water and Sewer Commissioner, 2 Dudley Charlton Regional School District Committee members, 1 for 3 years, 1 for 1 year, 1 Southern Worcester County Regional Vocational School Committee member, and 1 Charlton Housing Authority. Census forms have also been mailed. Please return to the Town Clerk's office. If you did not receive one, please download a blank census form at townofcharlton.net. The last announcement is that the Town Hall will be closed on Monday, February 19th in observance of President's Day. Are there any other announcements?
Yes.
Ms. Noble.
Thank you. Last night, I had the privilege and pleasure of attending the Charlton Cultural Council's annual Grant Awards ceremony. I wanted to let everyone know that the Cultural Council handed out 13 grants, everything from independent film to children's visits to the Worcester Art Museum to a ukulele lending program at the library complete with lessons. Yes. It was a very well-attended reception, and I bring this up because the Charlton Cultural Council is looking for new members. If you are interested in being part of this vibrant, colorful group that brings arts and culture to the community, please submit your interest through the talent bank form that you can find on our website. Thank you.
And just to go along with that, Ms. Noble, that the committee will soon be facing issues of actually being able to meet because of membership reasons. There are state regulations that are preventing the people who are on the committee from continuing serving
This
because
is
of
very
term
true.
limits.
Yes.
So please, this is a great, committee to be on. It helps distribute grants and other funding opportunities to local artists. So please, if you have any interest, please visit townofcharlton.net.
Yes, without the participation of these volunteers, these 13 grants would not have been distributed last night.
Thank you. Are there any other announcements? Is there anyone here for open forum? Seeing none, we'll move to our...
Through the chair.
Mr. McGrath.
I was giving the public a chance. I found out some information today from a water and sewer commissioner that the ExxonMobil is not going to put a shovel in the ground until after the summertime. And that because of the ACO that's been signed with DEP, they're working on the pump station and the pump station only and trying to get the water line up to the problem area where Casella has their problem. I think that that's fine and dandy, but I believe that they're two separate projects. And for the life of me, I cannot understand why DEP and ExxonMobil would not try to dig the road while the schools are out and try to run the water line at least up to Masonic Home to get some flow going so that we don't have standing water, number one. And number two, why we would not take care of Bay Path and the other schools while they're out. So my request is to please talk to the town administrator and the water sewer department and find out if that information is correct and how we're going to get this back on track. I believe the drawings are done, they're all approved, and there should be no delay in moving this forward.
Thank you, Mr. McGrath. I think, I agree with everything you just said, so we'll make sure the town administrator gets that directive.
Thank you.
Are there any comments on that? Mr. Swenson?
I just threw in there, I just want to echo what Mr. McGrath said. To the best of my knowledge, having been involved with both, they are absolutely separate jobs. There's no reason that one should be dependent upon another. I can't see of any reason why ExxonMobil would need to wait, because I believe you're right that the drawings are done and it's pretty much ready to go.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else here for open forum? Seeing none, we'll move to our appointments and resignations. Our first item is an appointment for the Public Safety Building Committee members update. Attached is a memo from the Public Safety Building Committee asking the Board of Selectmen to reduce the number of members on this committee from 10 to 7 due to quorum issues. Currently, the following have been appointed: Chief Cloutier, retired fire chief; Ralph Fisk, Joe Habler, Dave Ryan, Rob Barton, Brian Ouellette, Robin Craver, John McGrath, Rick Swenson, and Keith Cloutier. At the committee's meeting on December 14th, they have voted to ask the board to reduce the members to 7, with Robin Craver as an alternate for quorum reasons. They are asking the board to allow the following members to continue on the committee: Ralph Fisk, Joe Habler, Dave Ryan, Rob Barton, Brian Ouellette, Keith Cloutier, and Robin Craver as an alternate member, and 1 Board of Selectmen representative. Mr. Craver would recommend the board approves this request. And what are the wishes of the board?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Singer.
I would move that we approve the request and allow Ralph Fisk, Joe Habler, Dave Ryan, Rob Barton, Brian Ouellette, Keith Cloutier, and Robin Craver as an alternate to continue to serve in those positions with the 1 Board of Selectmen representative.
Thank you. A motion, do you have a second?
I'll second that.
Motion and second, discussion on the motion. Ms.
Very-
Noble?
Very quickly, it says 1 Board of Selectmen representative. Do we have that person?
Probably elect them after we make.
Yeah, as,
That had been me, but due to the meeting schedules, I haven't been able to make the meetings.
Okay.
so we'll decide that after this if whoever wants to step forward for that position.
Okay, thank you.
Any more discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Chair votes aye, motion passes. And who would like to step up for the
So when are the meetings?
Usually
Usually in the
mid-late
afternoon.
afternoon during the week.
Yeah.
Oh,
I've been able to make them, so if that works for anybody, I'll volunteer to do it again.
Yeah, I'm in an office in Worcester, I can't get here during the day.
Thank
So
you.
if someone wants to make that a motion, please.
I'll nominate Mr. McGrath to be the
Second.
Board of Selectmen representative.
Thank you. A motion and a second to nominate Mr. McGrath. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Chair votes aye, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGrath.
Thank you, Jim.
All right, item number 2 on appointments and resignations is appointment for a local inspector. 6 applications were received for the local inspector position, with 1 applicant from Charlton. We are recommending the appointment of William LePage. This is for 15 hours a week at $25 an hour. Ms. Craver would recommend the board make the appointment contingent upon a positive reference check and Corey check. Welcome.
Good evening, welcome, and thank you very much for supplementing my department with some help. This is William LePage next to me. He has a career in building as I did. He's been a certified local inspector for a number of years. Ms. Lorenz and I conducted interviews of 3 certified candidates and decided that Mr. LePage was the best fit for the town of Charlton. There were, as your memo indicates, 3 other candidates. They had no certifications, and to have an on-the-ground certified local inspector is going to be a great asset to our department and be able to hopefully improve the service level, as it will leave me more time to be in the office and answer questions, and the day-to-day inspections Mr. LePage can do. He's a CSL contractor, so he has his license as a construction supervisor. And he is currently building a house in town, and because of that, I will inquire with a neighboring inspector to do all the inspections on that, and his work in town will be limited so that we don't have these potential conflicts in the future. So, thank you for entertaining the appointment, and hope you go forward.
Thank you, Mr. Meskis. Welcome, Mr. LePage.
Thank you.
What are the wishes of the board?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Singer.
I would move to appoint William LePage for the local inspector position at 15 hours a week for $25 an hour, based upon the positive reference check inquiry.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
So motion is second. Any discussion on the motion? Mr.
Just
Swenson.
one question if I could, just to be clear, when you say local inspector, that's a building inspector?
Yes, that
As
is.
opposed to other inspections that go
Yes, in our field, there is a building commissioner, which I hold that
Right.
certification for, which is a higher level of certification. Mr. LePage currently only holds a local, and he can work under my auspices.
Very good, thank you.
Are there any other questions or discussions? Ms.
Yes.
Noble?
Have you done this type of position in any other town in the area?
Yeah, it's for the city of Worcester.
Okay. For how long?
A little over a year,
Okay. And before that?
only in Worcester.
Okay.
Is there any other discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye, motion passes. Welcome
Thank you.
aboard.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yes, getting there.
Kids.
Right. Item number 3, under appointments and resignations, is an appointment for an assistant treasurer. I'll read Ms. Craver's memo. We completed the interviews for an assistant treasurer that have chosen Nicole Neal from Charlton. She was interviewed by the finance director and treasurer collector in a first round, then by the HR director and Ms. Craver. We are in the process of checking references. In order to get her on board without delay, we are requesting that you appoint her tonight. 8 applications were received and 5 interviews were held. 4 of the applicants were from Charlton. She would recommend the board make the appointment contingent upon a positive reference check and Corey check. What are the wishes of the board?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion passes. Ms. Neal, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
All right. Item number 4, under appointments and resignations, is a resignation and appointment for the Insurance Advisory Committee. Attached is a resignation from Monica Redmond from the Insurance Advisory Committee as a member at large. The board should accept Ms. Redmond's resignations. A letter has been prepared and is in our assigned folder. You are asked to appoint Donna Foglio, Finance Director, to the Insurance Advisory Committee as a member at large. Per the Personnel Bylaws, Chapter 5, Section 2, an Insurance Advisory Committee shall be consulted prior to the purchase of insurance. And then there is listed the following members on the committee. What are the board's wishes of accepting resignations and appointing Ms. Foglio?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Singer?
I would move that the board accept Ms. Redmond's resignation with our thanks as well for service, and that we appoint Donna Foglio as, to the Insurance Advisory Committee as a member at large.
Second?
Thank you. A motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Chair votes aye, motion passes. Thank you very much. We will now move on to our 6:45 scheduled appointment with Fire Chief Knopf concerning staffing. Mr. Knopf, you'll please come on up. And I have a memo to start us off. Fire Chief Knopf is here to discuss the following with the board. 1, Deputy Chief position. 2, filling of vacant position. Number 1, Deputy Chief position. The Chief is here to present information and to request permission to fill the position of Deputy Chief. And number 2, filling of vacant positions. With the recent retirement of Roger Meskis, the requirements of the SAFER grant must be met, which include sufficient manpower needs. The grant responsibilities post-award state recipients under the hiring of firefighters category who lay off any operation personnel during the 2-year period of performance will be considered in default of their grant, and the award will be terminated. Recipients may be required to return the federal funds distributed under the grant award. Recipients under the hiring of firefighters category must agree to maintain operational staffing at the level that existed at the time of the award, and must also retain all SAFER funded positions throughout the grant's full 2-year period of performance, unless the grantee has been afforded a waiver of this requirement. At the time of award, recipients under the hiring a firefighter category must submit a current roster listing paid operational / firefighting personnel in support of NFPA 710 or NFPA 1720, who are in full-time or job share positions. The program office will work with a grantee to establish the correct staffing maintenance number, which combines the number of pre-SAFER and SAFER funded operational positions. Once this is established, recipients must agree to maintain this number throughout the 2-year period of performance by taking active and timely steps to fill any vacancies. Recipients who fail to maintain this level of staffing risk losing all federal funding under this grant. Whew, that's a lot. Mr. Knopf?
In short term, that just means that when we got the grant, the number was 23 that was agreed to with the grant people. Roger Meskis's last day was January 28th, just passed, 21 years of service to the Charlton Fire Department. Dedicated employee, and we wish him nothing but the best. That being said, there obviously becomes a need to fill that position, so that's what we're looking to do moving forward.
Thank you. Does the board wish to act on that now that we can talk about the deputy chief position?
Yeah. Do we need to actually have a motion to approve that?
Actually, as the appointing authority,
I would think so, yeah.
I am in the appointing authority.
Yep.
And I say to you guys that we're just looking for your blessing on it,
Right.
just to say that, you know, we're following the guidelines of the grant, and we want to inform you, the board, and the community as well.
So,
Absolutely.
Mr. Chair, if it would make Mr. Swenson comfortable and the chief, I would make a motion of support for the chief's request to fill that vacancy.
Second.
Thank you. A motion and a second. Is there any discussion on that motion? Mr. Swenson?
I'm just more comfortable having a vote because we have the authority for funding the position, maintaining that funding for the
Right.
position.
Moving
so-
forward, once the grant
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I know in
exactly.
the past for different positions, like through the police department and fire department, that we have made these motions before.
That's it.
Is there any discussion on the motion?
Just
Ms. Noble?
a couple of questions, just so we can be prepared. Is this the only vacancy we have?
This one plus the
The
deputy chief.
deputy chief, yeah.
Yes.
Do we have anyone else at the department that might be in a position to retire this year? Well, do they have enough years in?
I have, in a short period of time, in a year and a half, I have become the elder statesman of the fire department.
Okay. I don't want to put
can
us at
relate.
risk of losing this very wonderful grant, so I
Yes.
just, okay.
Makes sense to me. Is there any other discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Right, chair votes aye, motion passes. Thank you, chief.
Thank you very much.
All right, now we can discuss the deputy chief position.
And, I would just open it up to the board to be here to answer your questions. Since November 30th, when Chief Cloutier's last day, actually in the building, we've been operating with one administrator in the building, that being me. So just moving forward from his last official day of January 10th, it's been challenging to handle multiple positions. For those that don't know, I'm also doing the bulk of the fire inspections because of our medical situation with our fire inspectors. So that's the reason to come before the board today is we're looking to enhance the chain of command within our operation and to provide moving forward.
For the fire inspector position, I believe, at our last meeting, did we take action on appointing some part-time, or is that something that's coming down the pike in the future?
No, I don't think we've, through the chair,
Mr. McGrath?
I don't believe we've done anything with the fire inspector. We're just letting that
We're waiting for the process to take its
Okay.
take place. Through the chair.
Mr. McGrath?
To the chief.
Yes, sir.
Chief, what are your thoughts on the deputy's position? And are you going to go internal? How are you going to post it, is my guess, I guess.
My plan right now is to post inside as well as outside based on, obviously, criteria and
Chief, when were you first appointed as the deputy chief? When was that position created? I know I wasn't there
back in
For a while.
16, right?
in 16, so it's only been there for less than 2 years.
Correct.
Mr. Swenson?
Chief, if you could you just give us a quick breakdown on what you see as the duties of chief and the duties of the assistant chief?
Well,
deputy chief?
I'm hoping that you received a packet from me regarding.
I have it here, yeah, I do.
And within that packet, you can see that we've provided responsibilities for the chief and the deputy chief, both from the department guidelines and from the town's personnel bylaws. So, and we've also provided, obviously, for captains and lieutenants too. And the reason I provided it as all this information was to give you the most background regarding the roles and responsibilities for each individual.
Right, and it just, could you just give a brief overview for the people here and the people at home as well, just so everyone's on the same page?
Well, sure. As far as the chief go, obviously, he's the main administrator within the building and running the department. That being said, the value of a deputy chief provides somebody who is in a position to make those decisions if the chief isn't there, which is quite frankly a possibility. But it also provides continuity throughout the day in having an administrator within the building during hours of operation.
Before we had the deputy chief, who was the acting chief, just in case the chief went on vacation or sick?
We didn't really have one, which you essentially had whatever captain was on duty was responsible for the shift. And there was nobody really to handle day-to-day workings within the community, people coming in the door, anybody dealing with the board, town administration. So it was difficult in that aspect to operate efficiently.
Through the chair.
Mr. McGrath?
It's not an unusual request to have a deputy chief. You know, in the department, it's probably a little bit newer for Charlton to have one, you know, just through some of the constraints that we've had financially. But I think we've started growing the size of the department when we got the SAFER grant, so we have more employees down there, number one. Number two, I think we found out that we need a deputy chief down there just from some of the things that we're working our way through right now. I think the other thing is it gives a chance for somebody to be behind the commander and learn the ins and outs of how to run the department and to have some continuity.
Well, there's obvious benefits to it, you know. Having that succession plan in place is a great benefit moving forward for the future. It also, like I said earlier, it gives us the opportunity to maintain that day-to-day administration level leadership in the building.
Through the chair.
Ms. Noble?
You had stated earlier that you would be looking looking internally and externally
Both.
for a deputy chief. Seeing as you're the elder statesman there at the fire department now, do you think that, or has anyone currently expressed to you that they would be interested in the deputy chief position? That's currently working?
Nobody has expressed interest, because we were waiting for this to actually come to, you know, some sort of decision in the process here. But as I stated in my letter to Ms. Craver, currently our 4 captains, only one of them has over 5 years of experience in
Right.
that role. The other 3 are all under 2 years, and 2 of them you met last December when we had a pinning ceremony here. So they've only been on the job for a couple of months as a captain.
Right, so you will definitely need to be looking externally.
And that's
then.
why I wanted to open it up to outside as well, because I believe, and I'm looking for a candidate that's going to give me the experience I'm looking for,
Yes.
the values I'm looking for, and the characteristics of being a leader that I'm looking for.
And what do you foresee as being the timeline? How long do you think it will take you to get someone in place if this gets approved?
With the help of HR, you know, we're talking, as soon as we can get it posted, probably a 2-week process to accept applications. And then we're looking at setting up a interview process and an assessment center. So, yeah, I'm looking at end of March, hopefully.
Okay.
You mentioned going outside the department, looking for experience. What experience are you specifically would be looking for?
Well, it's an all-around job. Obviously, fire experience, critical. EMS experience, both hands-on on the job, but as well as administrative functionality. Knowledge of working with the unions and the contracts, vitally important. And somebody who's going to be a mentor and a leader to develop the young generation that we have moving forward. Those are just some of the qualities I'm looking for.
Are there any questions from the board? How much would this, would this be advertised for? I think it's 80,000?
Ballpark, it's obviously that's a discussion with HR and
Right. Has this been brought into front of Finance Committee yet?
it has not.
Is this under the SAFER grant, or this was pre-SAFER?
No,
right?
it's part of the SAFER grant in that it brings us up to that 23 number.
Right. So if this position wasn't funded as a deputy chief, how do we go forward? Would we have to hire another captain, another firefighter, EMS?
That's something we'd have to look into.
Okay, but we had to keep that 23
Correct.
level of staffing.
And I think we're at a crossroads within the department regarding the age of the department. We became young real fast, which is not a bad thing. But a lot of experience walked out the door in the last year and a half.
Mr. McGrath?
Through the chair, Chief, what's the difference between a firefighter's pay and the deputy chief's pay? Just so I know, you know.
Base pay,
Yeah.
probably 25,000.
Okay.
But, yeah, with overtime and stuff, there's firefighters who make more money than I do, so.
And deputy chief is a
Be a
non-union
non-union position.
So, Mr. Chair,
Mr. Singer?
so, I mean, technically, the role already existed. We're not looking to create a role, we're just looking to fill an opening, because that
Yes.
was the role you were in.
Correct.
So it's an existing role that just became vacant. I'm glad that you're gonna open up internally, although I think I share the concerns you've expressed, everybody else. We'd like to give our employees opportunities for advancement. Youth is concerning, so I do like the opportunity to go outside, simply because 13 of the 16 have under 2 years of experience here. You know, I think to really nurture them, you need to bring in somebody, and you know what, maybe one will rise to the occasion during the process, but you need someone who can literally take them, groom them, train them, and get them to become the next generation when you one day retire, you know.
And that's my plan moving forward, is I want to leave this place better than when I came in, and that, a big part of that is a succession plan and putting the right people in place to succeed further down the line in the future.
Chief, what duties would differ between the deputy chief and and chief?
Well, we have defined roles. When I was the deputy chief, I can tell you that I was the training officer, so I was in charge of handling all training aspects. I was also in charge of all the EMS inner workings within the department, so that was all under my oversight. As a chief, you know, we're responsible to be available for the community, be available for the board. And those things take you away from the day-to-day operation. So it's an individual who, and one of the other things that was critical in my role was I investigated any and all union issues, disciplinary issues.
Through the chair.
Ms. Noble?
When I look at what you gave us for a description of deputy chief,
Yes.
I've read through it. What you're describing as your duties are not listed in this job description. Will you be altering the job description?
No, and what, for my reference, what page you looking
I'm
at?
on page 35.
Oh,
10.2 deputy
Yeah,
chief, town of
that's
Charlton.
from the personnel bylaw. If you go to the page before that, 2.3 deputy chief, you'll see,
I see some of the things that you brought up, but certainly not all, so I'm just wondering if you're gonna be working with HR to revise this to accurately reflect the current needs of the department?
I will certainly look at, now, are you talking about the guidelines or the personnel bylaws?
I'm looking at page 34,
Okay.
so,
Oh, you look, is that 34?
I know those are other responsibilities that the deputy
Okay.
chief would be responsible for. I was just highlighting.
okay.
For the chief, for the training officers and EMS coordinator, is that something that a captain could handle?
I have a captain that is actually the training officer who coordinates all trainings. With all trainings, there's administrative functions as well, including making sure that we get them the equipment, outside training opportunities, all the maintaining of the records of the training. As everything else in this world today, documentation of what you do and how you do it is vital in the event that you have one of those events where people come looking for your training records.
And you're currently performing these duties now?
That is correct.
After, if a deputy chief was hired, what would your duties entail then?
Me as a chief?
Just in general, just to give us an idea.
Again, I go back to what we've stated here, but obviously the primary administrator, I would be responsible for rendering any decisions regarding discipline, obviously, with the assistance of the investigation with the deputy chief. I would also be the coordinator of the department. I've got to be able to plan for the future of the department, and I've got to be able to be available for the town. As many of you know, I've been involved with the water main project, actually speaking on that. Marijuana Advisory Committee. There are things that are pulling me away from the office, which, again, part of the roles and responsibilities of the chief.
Chair.
Mr. McGrath?
Chief, who's going to be responsible for grants?
Good question. If I can find someone and mentor somebody in writing those. I just wrote the last one that we submitted February. It was just the end of early this month, we had to submit for the AFG grants.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
That might be something that you want to pass on to the deputy chief.
Oh, absolutely,
to train also.
absolutely, I would work in coordination with them, obviously. That is obviously, and those are the roles that I look to fulfill in developing that deputy.
Thank you.
Any more questions from the board? Does the board have, what are the wishes of the board?
Through the chair,
Mr. McGrath?
I make a motion that we support the chief in filling the deputy chief's position.
Second.
Discussion? I would also like request maybe to have on that motion pending approval of Finance Committee. Finance Committee.
Absolutely. I'll amend my motion to add finance committee approval.
Same.
And motion second has been amended to include approval of Finance Committee. Is there any other discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion passes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much, we do appreciate it. All right, we'll now move on to new business. Item number 1 under new business is a special election request from Dudley Charlton Regional School District. And let me just find the memo.
It would be page 48.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
A lot of fire data.
Yes.
Yes.
A lot of background.
From Ms. Craver, please find attached a letter from Greg Desto from Dudley Charlton Regional School District Superintendent requesting a special elections for an override in the amount of $1,543,655. She has spoken to the town clerk and she will need the warrant by February 27th at 5 p.m. Thus, they determined that we must either act on the request tonight or schedule a meeting for the item before our next regular meeting. Mr. Desto is here tonight. Yes, Mr. Desto, to present the request and answer any questions that we will have. Also attached is a draft warrant for your consideration. You must call the election and approve the warrant article. They are proposing the special election be held Tuesday, April 4th, from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., and the ballot question is as follows. Shall the town of Charlton be allowed to assess an additional $1,543,655 in real estate and personal property taxes for the purposes of funding a portion of the Dudley Charlton Regional School District budget assessment to the town for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2018. And then we have the letter from Mr. Desto. I ask Mr. Desto to come on down if we have any questions for them, and I'll open it up for the board for discussion.
Through the chair.
Mr. McGrath.
I'd just like to thank the school committee and Mr. Desto for the work that they put in on this. They started in September. I know at times it seemed like it was grinding along slowly, and we wanted to get to this point so that we could put this forward. But they did their homework. I asked the townspeople to please, please go to the town's website, to the homepage. There's a report on there about the Dudley Charlton Regional School District. There's a lot of info and a lot of data there that will assist you in making an informed decision. And a lot of people put a lot of work into this, so with that.
Yeah, and I have to also add that there's a good executive summary on that report, and then it goes into very deep, lots and lots of data and documentation backing it up and explaining the process. Ms. Noble?
Thank you. You know that I support the schools, your work, the work of everybody on the committees, most importantly, the children. But I have been asked by several people in town, why do we need a special election on April 4th when we have regular town elections in May? So without belaboring the topic, I'm hoping you can provide some clarification as to why the date in April is so important.
Mr. Desso, welcome. If you
Thank you.
would mind answering that question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I noticed you had a tough time finding me out there in the crowd. I mean, it's easy to lose me sometimes, and I always have to do this, which is, someday we won't have to. But the main reason, Mrs. Noble, is that with the town meeting being in mid-May, I hate to begin the conversation with this, but should the override election not be successful, we would need time to revise our budget and determine how we were going to fill what's going to be an enormous gap between where we want to be and where we would have to be at that point. So the school committee would need, it's going to be difficult even for the school committee to revise in that short span of time with only 2 public meetings between April 3rd and, is it May 14th, the town meeting? So that's the primary reason why we are requesting a special election as opposed to going on the town ballot.
Okay.
And the reason why we waited until this point is to find out information from the state about figuring
Correct.
out funding from this year.
Yes, and I want to, if I may, you know, obviously, we're asking for your support, and we really appreciate that, and we appreciate the patience that you've shown, understanding, because we've been kind of in your shoes in some ways before. In a perfect world, we would have been able to give you a specific number much sooner, but the difference between the possible estimates that we got on health insurance and the transportation contract that was awarded last Wednesday could have been as much as $500,000, and we thought the number was too big to just go with estimates, and so the waiting was a little bit painful, but I think in the long run worth it, because once the number is on the ballot, it's my understanding, once it's approved by the selectmen, we can't change the number, so we wanted to make it as accurate as possible.
Thank you for providing that clarification. I really appreciate it.
Speaking of clarification, just in our memo, it's for April 3rd, correct?
That's
Tuesday,
what we're
April 3rd.
requesting, yes.
Okay. I think our memo was April 4th,
This
so.
says April 4th. on
Yeah,
our
so it's
record.
April 3rd, I believe it's that Tuesday.
That's the date that we're requesting, yes.
All right. What are the wishes of the board? And this will be calling an election on that date and then sending the ballot question.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Singer?
did you want to do it?
Mr. Swenson has his hand up first.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we support the request by the Dudley Charlton Regional School Committee for the override in the amount of $1,543,655, and that we do schedule a special election for Tuesday, April 3rd, 2018,
Second.
Thank you. Motion second, and that's as presented to us
as presented with the date correction.
in the language.
Yeah.
We have motion and second. Is there any discussion? Mr. Swenson?
I just want to echo some of the other things that's been said, is we've been shoveling against the tide for a number of years, and I want to give everyone involved in developing this kudos and thanks for developing it. I don't have, my kids are well-grown and out of the school system by now, but one of the crown jewels of Charlton is the quality of education our kids get, and we've been at risk, I think, for quite a while, risking the quality of education that they're getting. It's only through I think the dedication of your staff, the teachers, the committee members, that we, like you said a minute ago, we found ourselves in the same thing when we talked a few years ago about a town-wide. The fact is that we were always able to find another rock to look under and find ways to make sure the streets were plowed and the snow was plowed and the mail was, and all of that stuff. And sometimes that can work against you in these situations. But I just want to say that I absolutely support this. I think it's critical to the future of the education of our children in this town that this pass and we start to make up some ground on per pupil expenditures and such. So I just want to say my thanks to everyone involved in putting this together.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on the motion?
No.
Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion passes. Thank you very
Yes.
much.
Through the chair, I just want to say on behalf of the school district, school committee on down, how much we truly appreciate your support on this and look forward to working with you on this.
Thank you.
very
And
much.
we are partners, obviously, our children are so important, our students are so important that, we're behind them. Mrs. Swenson?
Just one quick question if I could.
Sure.
It needs to pass in both towns, correct?
I don't believe so, but it's quite complex if it passes in one and not the other.
Okay.
So it'll require some real planning on our parts together to figure out how to make that work.
Okay.
Because
thank you.
we could be able to appropriate it, but I don't think we could use it because of
Correct,
restrictions on Dudley's side.
right. And
sounds
it
right.
becomes complicated for us as a regional district to only be able to allocate money to the schools on one side as opposed to the other.
Right. Well, thank you again,
All right,
to
thank
the
you for
Dudley
your support.
Charlton School
Yep,
District.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Singer?
Actually, one more question.
Mr. Desto? I'm sorry, one last question, Mr. Singer?
Since they brought the Dudley half,
What's that?
since they brought the Dudley half, do we know what they're doing as far as the election special?
Well, yes, Mr. Singer, our request is for the same date in
In
Dudley as
Dudley?
well. And interestingly enough, because of the funding formula and the wealth factor and all that stuff that we've been talking about, the amount of the override breaks down to almost to the dollar, identical on both sides, even though they have fewer students in the
But
in
they
the
do,
population.
but they have a plan in place to get the election at the same time.
Correct. Yeah, the letter of request that I sent to the selectmen in Charlton, I also sent to the selectmen in Dudley, almost identical, just a change in the numbers.
Thank you.
Are they meeting next week for that?
They're meeting on the 26th, I believe.
Okay.
But they attended the last school committee meeting and are well aware of the situation.
Thank you very much. Any last questions for Mr. Desto?
No.
All right.
No.
Thanks
You may
again.
now really leave.
Okay.
With that, move on to item number 2 under new business. That's
Hey,
the,
Mr. Desto? No, just kidding. Just kidding.
item number 2 under new business, the Mass State Lottery Commission Keno to Go attached a letter from the Massachusetts State Lottery Commission notifying that they are offering a Keno monitor to existing Keno to Go agent Charlton Food Mart located at 109 Masonic Home Road to display at their location. If the board objects to the Charlton Food Mart receiving a monitor, we must put it in writing within 21 days and send the written objection to the legal department of the Massachusetts State Lottery Commission. Does the board have any objections?
What is this?
I believe Keno monitoring it's that TV that has the gambling,
Yeah, okay,
where they draw,
the numbers?
Numbers.
Yeah.
The question would be, how do you play Keno now if you don't have a monitor? It's how do you know if they pump it in a machine and you know if you won or lost? Or,
I think so, yeah.
Not a
They're
Keno
able
player, so I
to
don't-
really,
Yeah.
I think they scan the tickets and able to know.
Do they have that in Florida?
I have to say, I don't know. I'm not
I
a
have no clue.
Keno player or a lottery player, so I really don't know.
So it's just to put up a monitor, a big TV screen
Yes.
in the, okay.
Seems like it. Are there any objections, any questions we want to find out as a board? Seeing none, we'll move on and we'll have no objections. Item number 3 under new business is the all boards, departments, commissions, committees meeting. Find the memo. As the board has talked in the past, we've wanted some sort of program presented at the all boards, departments, commissions, and committees meetings. We are recommending the board combine the Community Resilience Building Workshop with the all boards meeting, which will be held on Saturday, April 7th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. in the Charlton Senior Center. Through the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Grant we received, we are able to address the urgency in climate change preparedness. The need for municipalities, corporations, and government agencies, amongst others, to build communities' resilience and adapt to extreme weather and hazards is now strikingly evident. The workshop would begin with a presentation and discussion on climate change, then followed with an introduction to the MVP program. Ms. Craver has attached an invitation that would be sent pending the board's approval. What are the board's wishes? Mr. Swenson?
My only concern in this would be, are we gonna get attendees? We're asking people to come in on their day off.
Yeah, especially from 9 AM to 3 PM.
Yeah,
In the
yeah.
past, we've held,
April 7th could be a good spring day. That's,
Yeah.
My
I know.
fear is you're not going to get it.
yeah, I'm trying to, nice way to say that, yeah. you're right.
especially the all boards meeting, I think, that's always been a special meeting where we're able to have a discussion. Usually, I think we try not to have it more than 2 hours. It's usually after work gets out, usually on a Tuesday night, right? So I
Yeah.
think that works, and it's good to have everyone there, so.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
Will-
Ms. Noble.
Will there be a guest speaker or a presenter here? Or are we having somebody come in to give this workshop?
I believe so. Yeah, if you look at the invitation. Mr. McGrath?
Through the chair, I believe that we should probably, because we received the grant, I believe still go forward with the.
Workshop.
With the workshop.
Mm-hmm.
But I echo Selectman Swenson's fear that, we should keep the all boards meeting to what it has traditionally been, where we get good participation from the boards, and it's a wealth of information is given out at that time, and I'd like to keep it that way.
Agreed. I think it does say a presentation will be given, it doesn't say by who.
Right.
Yeah, it wasn't clear, so I didn't know if that we had someone internally on staff who was gonna be giving the presentation on climate change preparedness, or if we were actually gonna be hiring someone to come in and pay them with the grant money. And how much did we get for the grant?
I think it was like something like 15,000 maybe for the actual planning part of it.
Okay.
So it seems like the board does not wish to combine the positions, combine the meeting. Mr. Swenson?
Yeah, I would, my thought would be, let's not combine the meeting, and I'd rather, if we could, entertain this again when Ms. Craver's here, because she probably has some of the answers to some of the questions that we're asking.
So yeah, so we have a couple questions
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah, I
So-
would like to know the guidelines of the grant.
Mhm.
I'd like to see how it was written, how the money has to be spent.
All right, I'll ask then, we answer those following questions, and then we also come up with a specific date for the all boards meeting as well. Thank you very much. Is there any other discussion on that topic? Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 4 under new business, and that's a site plan application for 0 Brookfield Road for Infinity Energy Services. The planning board provided us with a site plan submitted to them by Norman Hill, P.E., of Land Planning Incorporated on behalf of the applicant Infinity Energy Services of Howell, New Jersey, requesting site plan approval to construct a 2.4 megawatt ground-mounted solar array on property located at the end of 0 Brookfield Road, westerly of Brookfield Road, and northerly of the Massachusetts Turnpike. The parcel subject to the application contains 31.22 acres and is zoned agricultural and low-density residential. We are asked to review the application and provide comments, if any, no later than Tuesday, March 6th. And what are the wishes of the board?
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Singer?
I have one comment, and that is I'd like to find out if this board has the authority, or if it's the planning board, to put in place a moratorium, at least temporarily, on solar farms in the town of Charlton.
Mr. McGrath?
I believe that our hands are tied by the state, David. They're allowed, an allowed use, and we can't put a moratorium on it. It's,
In that case,
The usual comments?
well, yeah, I think it's sad. As I drive around town more and more, they're an eyesore. As far as I'm concerned, they're just destroying the town. I can get into the environment, I can get into wildlife discussions, but even just from a simple eyesore perspective, when you drive around, it's disgusting. We're apparently not putting in requirements to have natural barriers or something to protect the views from the roads. Just something has to be done.
Mr. Swenson?
And this is honestly a question more for Mr. McGrath. John, if you know this, zoning, it's zoned agriculture and low density. How is that an allowed use?
you can put them pretty much
Pretty much
anywhere you
anywhere
have
you
the
want.
land. And basically what most of them are doing is they're putting on land that's very expensive to develop. In other words, lots of hills, you know, steep grades, you know, probably wouldn't pass a perk test, but will support this. So, and that's why you're seeing them in, you know, a lot of areas. And people are getting good money for, you know,
Oh,
good
I'm
money
sure,
for them.
I'm sure, and but
Federal
honestly, I
kickbacks.
have to, honestly, well, I don't know if I agree with you on that, but I was just gonna say, I agree with you on the fact that I think
Yeah.
we're getting full of, I think we're reaching the saturation point on,
The limiting factor, believe it or not, is if there's three-phase
Yeah,
electricity
yeah.
running by. So, and some places where there wasn't three-phase, it was actually economical for them to run it.
run through.
Yeah,
And
it's
again,
crazy.
maybe our zoning enforcement officer has something. he can-
Yes, our zoning enforcement officer and building inspector has stepped forward. Mr. Meskis.
So our bylaw, zoning bylaw specifically allows large solar arrays, 250 kV and larger with site plan review. It was added a number of years ago to our zoning bylaw. It's allowed in any zone with that site plan review. I know other communities for a period of time had put moratoriums on, but they had to have we already had a bylaw to address it. So I think a moratorium, maybe a change to that might be championed by someone. But the state through 40A, Section 3, the exemption, or Section 6, the exemptions, carves out some specific exemptions for solar access and limits our ability to regulate them. So we regulate them pretty much to the extent that we can, ensuring that they're safe, that they're fenced, that access for fire apparatus or emergency apparatus is taken into consideration, and that they don't track mud on the road during construction, which of course, depending upon the season, is always a challenge.
Would that be, if I may, would that be about the scope of the site plan review? If they meet those criteria, that's about it?
Through the chair.
Ms. Noble?
Just off the top of your head, Kurt, can you ballpark how many solar arrays we have now
Probably 20.
functioning?
20.
20 within the town of Charlton? How much acreage are we talking about?
I'd have to do some mental gymnastics to find out.
Would you be able to bring that number to the next meeting, perhaps?
I can get you a report on exactly where they're all located and what the sizes of them are. As a percentage of land mass in Charlton,
Yes.
it's a small number. I wouldn't be surprised if it was less than 1%.
Okay.
Mr. Singer?
Yeah, a lot of that, well, it's easy to be that when Charlton's the third largest town in the state. Land mass wise, we're the third largest town in the state of Massachusetts.
Yes.
So we are spread out.
44
But-
square miles.
Yeah, so.
Excuse me, I would be interested in seeing that map, though, to see where the locations are.
Okay, and then, as Mr. McGrath said, these are often located on marginal pieces of property.
Yep.
And as far as development costs for, houses,
Right.
to the landowner or to the developer, it would be considerably higher. The impact on the community, aside from visual and any of those other arguments we, can discuss, doesn't require a lot of fire protection, not much police protection, certainly doesn't put students in school. And I'll talk to the assessor too, because
Yes.
we garner a considerable amount of revenue from these, tax revenue from these projects.
Thank you, I was just thinking that as well.
Mr.
So-
Singer?
Yeah, we hope the tax revenue continues, but as we know from the ongoing discussion, that there are certain solar farmers trying to get out of that or change that. I will just simply float this, that there is one other option. I almost brought it forth in the past when I was changing the article that I had requested to go on a town meeting warrant, which actually would have added the Board of Selectmen as a step in the process for photovoltaic areas over a certain size. And I had removed that, and regret that at this point now, in hindsight. other towns around us have actually put that in place. And they have it currently as one of their policies and one of their procedures, that if the solar farm is over a certain size, it would also have to have a special approval from the Board of Selectmen. And I think that may be something that we want to revisit as well. Other towns around us, some of our neighboring towns have actually already had that exact bylaw in place to protect them from what's happening here.
Mr. Swenson?
I think I'd have some concerns with the town and Board of Selectmen getting involved with that. However, I think Mr. Meskis may have offered an opening. I think an avenue may be to look at the bylaw and maybe propose an amended bylaw that would allow us to put a moratorium on or something like that.
Yeah, this is a bylaw.
Mr. McGrath?
So always the same
So
conversation.
here's the rub. Kurt, these are allowed by right by the state.
Pretty much.
The reason you have a bylaw is just so that we can do an administrative site plan on it. That's the only reason you have a bylaw. Otherwise, if we didn't pass that bylaw, you would end up with them doing it any way, shape, or form that they want to do it. So what the state has told these people is, yeah, you go find the line, you make sure that you make sure that the line is going by and that the utility will accept the power that you're gonna generate, and you can put it in anywhere you want. What the town did was, we passed a bylaw saying, yeah, you can put it in anywhere you want, but this is what you're gonna do. And that's where Kurt alluded to the things with safety, fencing, screening, things like that. You can't go and change the bylaw and put, there is no stipulation that you can put on these that the state's gonna allow, okay?
I'd like to find out how neighboring towns did it, because they had them in place, and how they got away with it then.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Meskis?
Mr. Singer, if you could provide me a list of those other towns,
Yeah,
I will
I will,
certainly see what they've done and
Yep, I'll get it.
somehow get, with the other 100 things I just volunteered to do.
Because
I knew I shouldn't have.
It's a quiet night for you.
you're not busy enough.
That's right.
So-
Well, I have help.
Yeah.
So,
Now you have help.
2 weeks. But,
So I'll give it to you in 3 weeks.
okay, these discussions, I certainly, have discussed these issues. The previous town planner, I've had numerous discussions on these because they come to us, the citizens come to us and say, how come you're letting these do this? So I'm conversant with it, but I will talk to our interim town planner who will give me his insight on it. We'll get some factual information. I know I could probably work with CMRPC, and we could probably have them make a map, so there's all sorts of things that we can do, but I certainly, and I do hear, from citizens about this, and I have to tell them the same sort of thing that I just told you folks, is that they're allowed with the site plan review, and there's some state preemption to us doing certain things, so.
Mr. Singer?
And then my last question, which actually probably would be a question for planning, is if they are requiring, as claimed, some kind of barrier, wall, natural, whatever, to block the view from the road, then how is it that if I drive around town today, I can pass tons of them and they're in full view? There's nothing there to block the road, the view from the road, or the neighboring houses or traffic that goes by.
Sir, if you can please come up to the microphone and state your name and address for our record.
Hi, my name's Mike Zareski, most of you know me. I'm wondering about this all the time when I see all these panels going up. And I said to myself, is the town making out on this? Are we getting money from them?
Yes, we are getting a significant amount in taxes on that equipment. I don't know off the top of my head what that is, but I think Mr. Meskis volunteered to present the board some information on, what we have currently for installations and how much we're getting.
I know Ms. Chickerini has that information, she's calculated it several times, and
Yep.
that's an easy lift, so.
And
Especially since you have
Where is
help.
this money appropriated?
To the general fund.
General fund, okay. And also, like you said, one of the horrible things I think is when I go by Shepherd Hill.
Oh my God, that is
No
horrible.
Yeah.
The kids coming into the school that, say for basketball games or something from other counties, I wonder what they think when they see this. What is this, you know?
It's horrible.
I haven't been by there.
Right at the entrance to the school is massive solar array right there on the corner at the entrance to the school. Be
You
visible
can't
to the
even see
world.
the school. It's unbelievable, you know? There's gotta be some more control by our town than to just say, go ahead, we can't do anything about it.
Go by Shepherd Hill.
Which is why we're
I'm going to,
asking for the
exactly.
map
It's horrible.
I've never seen it.
of where they're all located and the
Right.
funds that they're generated so that going forward, we can make informed decisions about them.
And another thing, I was talking with Todd Girardi, you know, are they going by plans with the, say, water prevention, water getting spoiled from having these panels up there? You know, there's a lot involved in just saying, we got a piece of land, let's put it there. Let's put these panels there, you know?
Right.
And is that being all checked out? You know, so it wouldn't hurt our water? You know?
I can tell you that Mr. Gerard and the Conservation Commission, anytime there's any work within 100 feet of a wetland or 200 feet of a riparian zone, has to review these plans. I know Mr. Gerard goes out quite frequently on these projects and ensures compliance with it. So, you know, and then ensures that the grass or the stabilization is put in place before anything is released to them from the conservation end, so.
Mr. Singer?
Yeah, Todd, I concur with what Kurt said. Todd does a wonderful job with everything he works on.
It does.
Yeah, he does. The big environmental issue is more when it comes time to dispose of the panels and the batteries. That's the big issue there. Manufacturing them and disposing them is an environmental disaster by itself, not to mention deployment.
So going forward, we will, Mr. Meskis will work on a report. We'll forward our usual comments to the planning board, and then you will also work with Mr. Meskis to
Yeah, I'll
do
give him the
research on those
information.
towns.
Yeah, I'll send him the actual bylaws.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Is there any more questions or comments? No, if not, Mr. Meskis, you stay up for item number 5 under new business. That's the building department permit fee evaluations.
Mr. Meskis wants everything held over until the assistant starts.
The Building and Inspectional Services Department has not updated fees since July of 2008. This includes wiring and plumbing and gas permit fees. They're in the process of evaluating their fees and plan to survey adjacent and similar towns, including Auburn, Dudley, East Brookfield, Leicester, Oxford, Southbridge, Spencer, Sturbridge, and Webster for their current fee structures. You are asked if there is any other information that you would like them to gather, as well as to provide in this fee comparison. What are the board's wishes? Mr. Swenson?
Was it really 2008 we went through all the fees?
Yes.
10
I
years
saw
ago.
this, I'm reading through, like, oh, we just did that a few years ago.
No, it's been posted and it says these fees enacted July of 2008.
Thank you for reviewing them. But are there any other specific information the board would like to see gathered?
I think just a comparison of what other towns are doing, and, you know, it's a barometer to base it on.
Right,
It's fine.
and what we'd also like to do is that we have had a disparity between what the plumbing inspector is compensated per inspection and the wiring inspector. I think they're both equally skilled positions. They require similar certifications to do that, and we have a disparity in what we charge commercial customers and residential customers, and it becomes very confusing for everyone to figure out what their fee is. I'm also looking, so we're gonna try and present something that brings equity to those inspectors, that is in line with communities around us. This is a fee for service, so it's a discretionary operation that mostly generates these fees. And I want to look at some of our building permit fees, because I do a calculation on square footage to figure out how much a house is, and I've talked to a number of builders and says, you know, would you be happy if I told you it was just X per house? Because we're going to provide a certain level of service, a certain number of inspections for these fees. It's going to be laid out. And then if they need more inspections, then we'll charge them additional fees. But the fees are going to be reasonable for the services rendered and all the costs incurred, because right now there's overhead, you know, besides what I do. You know, the assessors have to do additional work every time we have a new house. There's other departments involved, so when we calculate these numbers, there's other things involved than just what we're paying within my department.
Makes sense.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Mr. Meskis. Have a great night.
I'm
Appreciate
trying.
everything. With that, we'll now move on to old business. Item number 1 under old business is email outage notifications to selectmen. And I have the memo from Ms. Craver. At the board's January 16th meeting, Kevin Shaughnessy was present to give an update to the board on National Grid's tree trimming and removal programs, outage and storm communication processes, and the recent change in pole setting between National Grid and Verizon. At that meeting, Selectman Singer requested that all board members be notified of any power outages in Charlton. Mr. Shaughnessy has confirmed that we have been added to the automated messaging for outages going forward. The messages will be for outages that are greater than 100 customers per Massachusetts Department of Public Utilities requirements. For outages smaller than 100 customers, there are no automated notifications.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing it up. It's good to be, to be in the know in those situations. All right, any comments on that? Seeing none, we'll move on to our second item under old business. That is the water betterment reimbursement for interest charges. At our last meeting, we held a discussion with resident Karen Fiero regarding reimbursement interest charges for the water betterments. The treasurer collector has stated that pulling all the interest paid by every account is going to take some time, and she is short-staffed and will be training a new employee. So she's not aware of any other communities. She's also not aware of any other communities that have canceled betterments. As a reminder, should the board decide to refund the interest, we will need another town meeting vote. We are only authorized to reimburse the betterment payments, not the interest. She recommends that we add a placeholder for the annual town meeting budget for this purpose while we gather the information that we are seeking. So I would then
David has a question.
Mr. Singer?
Not a question, it's just simply say, since we're still waiting for information, but we want to get this on there, that I would move to add a placeholder for the spot for this on the town meeting. I don't know if she wants the budget or the warrant, but basically.
Yeah, just a placeholder on our annual town meeting.
That we put a placeholder on there for this.
I'd second that.
Motion is second. Is there discussion on that? Ma'am? Please make sure you state your name and address for the record, and you have the floor.
Thank you. My name's Karen Fierro, and the property I am concerned about is 3A South Sturbridge Road. Now, I have some questions going back to the last meeting. Several things were mentioned. Now, as far as I believe, that the ExxonMobil settlement was really from the people who had contaminated wells. Am I correct?
Mr. Swenson?
The settlement was actually between the town as a whole. The purpose of the settlement was to deal with the issues caused by the spill for the affected residents. But the settlement, there was nothing in the settlement specifically worded or dealt with affected properties. The settlement was between the town of Charlton and ExxonMobil Corporation.
Okay. Now, my question is, and a lot of people are questioning this also, not just me, is why is some of the money from the ExxonMobil settlement going to pay for staffing for the water department over the next 2.5 years?
I'll jump in as best.
I'll
jump in as
Can you
best.
answer that?
I'll jump in as best I can on that. There's going to be several changes. The water usage is going to be going up. We're going to be developing a town water system. We're buying the water from Southbridge. We're going to have all new structure and all of, and there was, during the negotiations, there was an identified need to have supervision over the water system while it gets up and running. And rather than have the town, and this was also something involved, I believe, not as an engineer overseeing construction, but to be in place during the construction and working on the town's behalf, making sure everything is implemented and up and running properly. And the town DEP felt that the best way to serve the town was to have someone in that position, and then part of the settlement was that ExxonMobil would pay for that position.
So we are increasing the capacity and the function of our water department So-
Yeah, and I want to make sure as we have this discussion, we go about it in the right order, in that it absolutely was not a matter of, we said, okay, we'll go back and forth and we settle on this is the settlement, now what are we going to do with it? It was much more a process of, this has to be done, a pump station needs to be built, these pipes need to go in, this has to happen, that has to happen, this has to happen, and then all that totaled up to what became the amount of the settlement. So it wasn't said, well, all right, we have all this money, let's take $250,000 and hire an engineer. It was determined between DEP and the town, and ExxonMobil, honestly, that this position needed to be in place, so that amount was added into the settlement to cover that.
Okay, it doesn't quite still set with me. And I'm pretty sure it still doesn't set with a lot of people, because it's not helping these people with contaminated wells. Do you know how much it will cost these people to tie in to this town water? You're talking over $6,000 easy just to tie in.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but if I'm not mistaken, the prior settlement covers all hooking up charges, and there'd be no.
Nobody's ever said anything about me.
If I
covered.
may jump in, there was certainly discussions, and again, it's been a couple of years at this point, but there was certainly discussions that if people and again, I believe this is, I'm not stating this as fact, I believe the way this went was, there were a couple of time periods where affected residents could sign up. And if they signed up within that time frame, ExxonMobil would cover the connection.
Well, we would never offer that, going back to 2013. We
Okay,
would
that
not
may be a
offer
different
that.
discussion, but I'm pretty confident there were two different time periods.
One at a time, please.
Through the chair, you're asking specific questions about the water system that need to be taken up with the water and sewer department, not with this board, okay? We handle certain things, they handle other things, and they can give you much better answers than you're going to get here. They work with this day in and day out, and the board that's down there, the members of the board, can probably explain it better than we can. We can explain the betterments and what the town has done with the money and how we're going to try and make things right, which was your original complaint.
Right.
Other things that you have to talk about the water department, you need to go and see them about that, because this board has no control over that, and we only handle, the betterment portion of it on how we're gonna get the money back to you.
Right.
That's what we're trying to function as now.
And from our last meeting, we understood, you made there was some great points made. That's why we're going forward. We cannot authorize that. Town meeting has to vote to approve actually paying back, refunding the interest rate.
Okay, and what is the interest rate?
Well, the interest that you brought up, the interest that was paid on the betterment so far, the reason why you came to the last meeting.
Right, well, I just wanted to make a point that we are asked to pay all this money to tie into the water system and have all this done to our well. I think at least the town should be able to give us back our interest.
Right.
And that is what the board is working towards now, ma'am. We
Yep.
put a placeholder on the warrant so that we can bring it before town meeting, and town meeting will vote yea and nay on whether we pay you back. That's the way it works. When we put the first article on the warrant, it was for the betterment fee itself, it wasn't written with the interest on it, okay? So now we have to go back to town meeting and ask them to also add the interest that you paid so that we can pay it back to you.
Yeah. And also, currently our staff is pulling together all the interest that everyone's paid, so we have that data to present.
That data. Okay, well, the reason why these questions came up to me was because it was said at the meeting, the last meeting that, when I was here. And when I was re-listening to that, it was just like, these questions started popping in my head.
Yeah.
So I was looking for answers
Oh,
because
absolutely.
I'm not the only one that's looking for answers.
Right. Absolutely, and that's why we're moving forward with that as well. So we hear you loud and clear.
And I would just like to echo what Mr. McGrath said. As far as the minutiae, the details, the actual who pays for the hookups, how the hookup is done, that is all water and sewer. Mr. McGrath is absolutely correct. They're an independent elected board. So we as the fiduciary guardians of the town, look at handling the betterment fees and the money part of it. But as far as how you get connected, who pays the connection fee and that, I told you what I believe to be the case, but you can get factual information from Water and Sewer
Well,
on
I
that.
talked to people who had to pay upfront themselves to be connected.
And again, a lot of this was done before the final settlement was done with ExxonMobil. You know, a lot of these things weren't determined until we signed the final agreement with ExxonMobil.
Sir, did you have a question? I saw you raise your hand earlier.
You answered it and said there was another town meeting that.
Yeah, which, just for information, will be held mid-May.
May 10?
Mid-May, I think it's the third week in May. I do not have the exact date in front of me.
It's at the town meeting,
The town meeting, yeah, the annual town meeting,
which will be at the school,
which will be at the middle school.
middle school.
No, I'm good.
So currently, we have a motion on the floor to put a placeholder in our town meeting warrant, basically saying that when town meeting comes up, we're taking up this issue. So we don't have the ability to make a decision. Town meeting is the organization that can make that decision. Does that make sense?
Then who made the decision not to pay us the interest back?
During the original town meeting, which was approved to pay back the betterment, that was town meeting. So it wasn't including at a vote at that time.
So, through the chair.
Mr. McGrath?
Whether, whose oversight it was, I guess you're gonna have to say it was our oversight. The Board of Selectmen did not think about the betterment and the interest for the betterment. When we put it before the town meeting, we said, we'll pay the betterment back to the people, okay? We didn't think about the interest. So, what we're gonna do now is we're gonna make that right. We're gonna put it on.
Thank you,
we're
I
gonna-
appreciate that.
Thank you for bringing this to our
Yeah,
attention.
no, we didn't think of it, at all.
I'll
And
caution you,
Mr. Singer?
the word, three letters, TRY.
Go ahead.
The town meeting can say no. So we put the warrant on the placeholder for it, but town meeting will vote.
You need to be there and be vocal about why. And we're gonna, and what we're doing, as the chairman alluded to, is the town collector is now getting together all the records of what was paid out for, or what is owed, what would be owed for interest on this, okay?
So we're just doing our due diligence to get all the information that we need to go forward with it.
I must say thank you,
Thank you.
Yeah, no,
thank you.
we didn't think about it.
Sir? Sir, if you can please come up to the microphone and state your name and address for the record.
Ron Hokinson, 21 Power Station Road. If you go to taxes, we're in that season right now, and you would put down your taxes, and you had a betterment tax on your property, you would also include the interest that you paid the town. So that whole betterment thing should have been returned to us, including the
It just, for what was voted on?
I know,
Right.
you just didn't put it in, but,
Right.
I mean, it's a technicality, but I think people normally would think, if you're gonna return that betterment, it's the whole thing, not just.
Right. And also, it's very rare that a town takes back a betterment, so this is
Yes,
not
that's true.
common at all.
That's true.
Mr. Singer?
So one thing I'd point out, I think when, I didn't sit on that meeting, so I'm only guessing. My guess is, and I should never guess, I assume. But when the Board of Selectmen and FinCom met, my assumption is that part of the discussion or decision-making may have been that giving back interest creates a bigger problem now, because the town, when they refund the interest, town already paid the interest, town doesn't get the interest back. That means that every other taxpayer in town is now on the hook for that interest. So I'm just guessing, that may be why during the initial meeting, they may have either they just overlooked it, or they might have thought, we're not giving that back because we can't recover it ourselves. I don't know.
Mr. Swenson?
But
Mr. Swenson?
The original thought of the group was, and the explanation we got was that The decision was made based on the fact that those people who paid up front were losing interest that they could have made on that money. So that loss and the interest that would be lost by not paying you back, the interest was the most fair way of resolving that. Now, let me finish. Since you came last week, and I was pretty vocal last time you were here as well.
Yes.
When you came last time, you made your case and we rethought that. I agree with you. I think your interest should come back. I'm just trying to say why the decision was made the way it was. The feeling was that those that lost earned income on interest they would have gotten on banks or deposits when they paid up full, and the interest that you lost by not getting it back would kind of offset each other. That was the original decision process, but since you've brought that back, we've rethought, and maybe that wasn't the best way to go.
Right, and that's
No,
you're doing
it
it
wasn't.
Yeah,
Because to
exactly.
me,
That's exactly
that was
right.
like comparing apples to oranges.
I agree with you. I think,
Right.
and as I said last meeting, I agree with you.
And that's
I'm just-
why we're going forward. with
Exactly,
what
that's why
doing
we're
now.
gonna go forward. And as been stated, it was a town meeting vote that first said not to pay back the interest, so it has to be a town meeting vote, one way or the other, to decide if the interest will be paid back.
Sir, you have a comment? Could you please come up to the microphone and state your name and address?
Gary Showers Senior. I just want to say, if it gets turned down, the people voted, excuse me, if they voted down, what action, where can we go from there?
Honestly, I do not know the answer to that question, but that's something that we can look into and have for our next meeting.
Because you're talking not ourselves, but other people, that's a lot of money.
Right. No,
On
we
the
completely
interest.
understand. So one thing I would definitely make sure is to make sure you attend that meeting.
Yeah.
Ms. Noble?
The other thing, I was gonna say, yes, please attend the town meeting, but also remember, when you come to the town meeting, you have the opportunity to get up and speak in front of the microphone. And I would suggest you do so, because you pled your case very well 2 weeks ago. I know, because I watched it on TV, even though I wasn't here, and I was thoroughly impressed. And yes, I do believe wholeheartedly that you should be made whole.
Thank you.
You're welcome, so I would suggest you come to that town meeting. As many of you as you can. You will all have the opportunity to speak on the mic, to convince the rest of the members of the town, your friends and neighbors. To vote in your
Thank
favor,
Rick for
okay?
speaking out that time too.
You're welcome, and I agree with Ms. Noble. I mean, you made your case very well, and even more importantly than getting people out to get up and speak is getting them there to vote.
Yes.
Yeah.
One thing I've learned over the years at town meeting, it's very much cause-driven. People come out when there's a cause that affects them personally. So, the more of your affected people, neighbors that you have that you can get to come out and support your cause, the better. And I believe, to answer the question earlier, I believe if it fails at town meeting, your option is to bring it up at the next town meeting again.
Okay.
And, but also, please come to every town meeting.
This is planned to.
Good, and there's something positive from it.
Through the chair.
Mr. McGrath?
Do we have a motion?
We currently have a motion and a second on the floor to put a placeholder on the upcoming annual town meeting. Is there any more discussion on that motion?
No.
Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion passes. Thank you very much. And thank you all for coming out and presenting this information. So we'll make sure we keep you in the loop going forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. And just as a reminder that the treasurer collector will be researching information and will be made aware of that. With that, does anyone have any committee reports? As the room empties out.
Yes,
Ms. Noble?
just to let everybody know, if you hadn't heard already, the planning board approved the site plan for the medical marijuana facility in Charlton. And we'll be meeting again, probably within the next couple of weeks. That's the Medical Marijuana Advisory Committee. The Fay Mountain Farm Committee had a meeting. We're now meeting about every 2 months. And if anyone is interested in signing up for CSA shares, they've started taking applications.
How do you apply? Is it online, in person?
You can go to the Fay Mountain Farm just up the road, or you can go to their Facebook page and contact them.
Perfect. Thank you. Any other committee reports or questions for Ms. Noble? Seeing none, we'll move to other business. Unknown at the time of posting was a site plan review for 4 Old Sturbridge Road. I have, this was in our office, is a site plan. It's also here with us tonight. So please find an application submitted to the planning board by Burton Engineering on behalf of Otis Land Management LLC, requesting approval to construct a self-service storage facility containing 75,800 square feet of storage space and 1,200 square foot administrative building. The project was previously approved as a commercial subdivision, and a proposal for an oil bulk storage facility was submitted to the planning board in August of 2016. The property contains 12.69 plus minus acres and is located on 4 Sturbridge Road. The property is zoned industrial general. The planning board has scheduled a continuation of the public hearing on the revised site plan originally opened on September 7th, 2016, at its meeting on Wednesday, February 21st. Should you wish to comment on the application, please submit your comments to to Ms. Graber at the planning board office no later than Tuesday, February 20th. What are the wishes of the board, Mr. Swenson?
If this is gonna be a storage business, could we stipulate that they have to build one unit that we could use for our record storage?
Hey, why not?
We're gonna have enough storage facilities in this town to store the entire town.
Or if we can put it underneath the solar panels.
I was about to say, can we just put the solar panel on
top?
top of the
Perfect.
storage facility?
One of the latest things is, especially with the state, if they are providing parking at any new state facilities, they put up, think of a canopy over the, over a gas station, but they've put a little bit of a flare to them, and they put solar panels up in the top. So the new engineering building that you can see from the turnpike, right before 495, all those canopies that they have up for parking vehicles under, they're also solar arrays.
But that's big in Europe as well.
Very nice.
Yeah,
Yeah, they don't have as much space over there.
no, they don't.
All right, are there any comments we'd like to forward to the planning board regarding 4 Sturbridge Road? Seeing none, that is the other business that we had. Is there any other business that was unknown at the time of posting? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to enter executive session.
Through the chair.
Mr. McGrath.
I make a motion that we enter executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, Number 2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparations for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel regarding the town administrator contract. If the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and 2 seconds, and the chair does declare that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiations position of the public body. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we will go by roll call vote. Mr. McGrath?
Aye.
Ms. Noble?
Aye.
Mr. Swenson?
Aye.
Mr. Singer?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We are now in executive session at 8:05 PM. We will exit executive session solely for the purpose of adjournment. With that, have a great night. And our next meeting will be February 27th. Take care.
We are-